All right, this video I'm gonna quickly go through the evolution of the sticks as far as their design and development and why we made some of the decisions that we made as far as some of the sticks go. So I'm gonna kind of go in order. This is the first stick that my brother made. We stained it a wood grain color so that it would match the furniture in the living room, so it kind of looked like it belonged in there. And so in this particular design, it is sloped. Here's where the joystick goes. Standard Street Fighter setup with your light, medium, and fierces. Up here we had the start, home, and back button because this was originally designed for a 360, and we had the trigger buttons that went on the side. He put these little latches on the side so that you can open it up, because this was a wireless model. And so what would happen is you would there was a battery pack that was velcroed here so you could switch out your batteries if you needed to. The sync button was here, and then this was the other trigger button. So we like this design, but we're fans of Capcom art, and so we decided to do some custom controller that had like artwork in it, because that's part of the fun of the controllers. But that was the first one. So this was the second one. It was a lot smaller, and so what we did was, here's where the joystick went, and then again your 6 buttons, and we took the home and the sync and the start and back buttons off the top, but here we went with an acrylic top and then slid custom artwork under it that he actually illustrated. So this is my brother's illustration of Ryu, and so we went with a smaller box. Again, put the left button and trigger buttons, and right trigger button, and the home and sync and back buttons on the side there. And then what we did is we closed this one all up, and it was wireless too. So we had it hooked up to this USB so that you could hook it up, you know, to the 360 to recharge it and stuff. But the battery pack was inside, and we closed it up so you wouldn't have to get in it. No handle to carry it around or anything, because it was a lot smaller. So after playing with these particular sticks, Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe came out, and we noticed that in that game they force you to use the D-pad, which we never like using the D-pad for almost any game, really. You know, once you use the analog sticks, you kind of get used to it, especially for a fighting game. And so I really like Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, just off the premise that you can play as superheroes and use them in a fighting game. I thought that was awesome, but the controls were bad. So after he kind of showed me some basics on wiring, I decided to try and design my own controllers. And so this was the first one I did. As you can see right off the bat, what happens is here is I have the traditional Mortal Kombat layout, which was, you know, block and then your 4 attacks. But then Mortal Kombat versus DC uses a whole bunch of extra stuff that they implemented into the fighting game, like moving in the 3D plane. So you have to hold a button down and then hit up and down, and then you can move into, you know, you can move up or down in the screen in the 3D plane. Also, for some of the Mortal Kombat sequels, they institute that run button, and so that's what this was for. Now, what happens is a lot of people are saying, "Wow, man, you have a lot of buttons." I don't understand why. In Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, there's also options to grab and throw. You can throw opponents out of the arena and then fight in the air, or you can grab them and then enter close combat, which I thought was pretty cool, but I know a lot of people thought it threw off the flow of the game, but I thought it was really innovative. The problem with this stick was, based on this layout and some other things, the joystick was going to go about right here. So the joystick was going to end up like in the middle of the controller, and I didn't really like that at all. And the reason for that was, the way I was laying this out was, I was going to use an original controller up in the corner mounted, and then have the wiring come in through here. But I really messed this box up because there were some things I didn't foresee. Like when I drilled this hole for the button, it was too close to this board. The buttons have like a nut that goes on it to hold the button in place, and that wouldn't have fit. And so I kind of messed this up, and I accidentally drilled an extra hole here. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was tired or something, but I accidentally drilled that. So you could kind of see what I was trying to do with the controller here. This is a little bit better layout. See, I'll put the controller here, and the reason why I was doing it like this was, I thought the original controller was great as far as it being a functional piece of hardware, because you can switch out your batteries. You could you know, mic up, and you can hard connect to recharge your batteries if you had rechargeable batteries in there or whatever. So I kind of wanted to leave that as is, and then just wire the buttons into it to control the buttons. The other issue I was having once I got to this stage was, I was using birch wood, and birch wood was kind of hard for me to control, because there was little things happening, like splintering, and I was trying to use wood putty to smooth it out, but it didn't really work. And so I didn't like this kind of wood, but I tried to stick with it. So this was my first functional stick. And so you can kind of see a little bit more what I was doing. Here I had the controller, so you can still mic up, swap out batteries, connect to your Xbox. But then I had it going to all the switches that controlled the buttons, and then I had, you know, my home, select, and back here. And so this was the front, the first design. And so here you see the button. So you have the block, high punch, high kick, low punch. In Mortal Kombat versus DC, they don't really have high punches and low punches, but what they have are attacks. But when you hit the buttons and see the attacks, you can kind of see it still kind of follows that format. So here would be the run button, but in Mortal Kombat versus DC, it's not for run, it's for moving in the 3D plane. And then here you see the joystick is not so centered. And so what happened here is you end up with kind of a big controller, which I didn't mind. But the problem I had with this controller outside of the wood was the artwork started coming off because I didn't use a strong enough adhesive. So this was my first stick, but I learned a lot from this stick. But from here, I went ahead and started using MDF board, and I reduced the size, and I went wired instead of wireless. So this was a much smaller one, wires directly to the 360. But it also can be wireless because this is, the controller was a wireless controller, as you can see here inside, but it's hard connected. So you use that hard connected wires to be able to, you know, charge it via USB. So the battery pack is still in there. And then here's the wiring, which is kind of messy because they're all over the place. I didn't cut things to length or anything like that. I was just more or less worried about coming up with a functional stick. So this one was a sort of upgrade of the last one I did, and it works and everything like that. But as you can see, it's a lot smaller. I know a lot of people are sort of intimidated by the large sticks. I don't have a problem with the large sticks, as you can see, with its bigger brother. Now this one is kind of like the finished design as far as what I was going to go with. This is a lot smaller in comparison, if you compare them. But this one is a lot smaller than this one. But I like the bigger boxes because this one, when you sit in your lap, the corners kind of dig into your legs because it's kind of small. But this one, there's enough overlap to where it actually sits on your lap and it's comfortable. Or you can set it on a table. So on this particular final design, it's closed up and I put some art on the bottom. So it's more like, almost like a canvas, more like a piece of art than it is a controller. It's like a controller slash piece of art. I use them to put it like custom character designs as far as my own ideas as far as what characters could look like in the game, because I'm a big fan of both the Capcom and Mortal Kombat artwork. So on this one I have the home, you know, start and select. I got the buttons from X Arcade. I put a little handle that I just bought at a hardware store on top, and what happens is the wire wraps around the top when I store it like this. So you can wrap the wires around the top. This was the Kenshi one that I did, and then this is the smoke one that I did, and I plan on doing a whole bunch more. And then here, instead of putting high punch and low punch, high kick, low kick, I just put the letters of the buttons. The buttons are essentially in the same arrangement that you find on the controller, with Y at the top, A at the bottom, B and X. They're just kind of turned to fit the Mortal Kombat layout. Now before, I had the layout like your traditional layout where they're kind of spread out. But what I was finding was I was having a problem without looking at the controller, knowing whether or not I was hitting grabber, high punch, or throw, and high kick. I couldn't tell based on how it felt. So what I did on this controller was I tightened it up to where you don't have to really move your hand at all to be able to hit your basic attacks. But then if you wanted to hit grab, you can move up and hit grab, or move all the way over and hit throw, and then still relatively be close to hitting the 3D plane. So in Mortal Kombat versus DC, if you wanted to move down in the 3D plane, you can just tap your thumb on that, but then you can still hit all these basic buttons. So I put artwork all the way around, put a clear coat on it, a really thick layer of clear coat to seal it up, to hold the graphics down so you can easily clean this and not get it dirty and stuff like that. And use the better adhesive to hold the art on. So I think that's going to be the final design. I might do a couple small ones like this. I know everybody likes the smaller ones, but for some odd reason, I like the bigger one. So check out the part 2 of the video and you'll see the controller in action.